believe that economic growth is the solution to climate change. Seated on my right, representing the government, Uitm Pulau Pinang. The Prime Minister, Fad, the Deputy Prime Minister, Hana, and the government whip, Shafiq. Seated on my left, representing the opposition, Uitm Raub B. The leader of opposition, Fatin, the deputy leader of opposition, Fatini, and the opposition whip, Naib. I am pleased to introduce our judges for today, which are Syazza Shukri, Muhammad Rizwan, and Sharifah Miza Farhana. I, Muhammad Hijrah Kabil, am your speaker and timekeeper. Each speaker will be given 7 minutes to deliver his or her speech. The bell will ring once. At the first minute, debaters are allowed to give POIs, and the bell will ring once at the 6th minute. No POIs are allowed during this time. The bell will ring twice at 7 minutes, indicating the end of debater's speech. Every debater is advised to accept at least 1 POIs. We will now begin our debate. I will now call upon the Prime Minister to deliver her speech. Hear, hear.
This House believes that the economic growth is the solution to the climate change. Before I move on deeper to the subject, I would like to define each and every word of the sentence in a very simplistic manner so that each and every one of us will understand it really well. First, this House believes that even though it is really simple words, but I believe that little things matter. This House believes that means that we have to prove that economic growth is the best solution to create the climate change, not the mechanism how the economic growth. So we have to prove that. So the meaning of some solution. Solution means that it is a means of solving a problem or dealing with difficult situation. So what is our problem right now? Our problem right now is obviously the climate change.
Order.
Thank you. I will move on to the next definition, which is the climate change. This term, we believe, all of us know that the climate change is accelerating in a critical rise. But really, do we really understand what is the very definition of the climate change itself? The word climate change rise since mid to the late 20th century because there is an increasing rise in global and regional climate pattern. And of course, regarding the temperature itself. And I will move on to the most important part of this definition, which is the economic growth. I believe that the economic growth in this debate meaning that the economic development itself. So we will put the economic growth in terms of measurable value, which is in the GDP. What is GDP? GDP is gross domestic product in the monetary value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country's border in a specific time period. In the simple term, it is in the US currency. And regarding the economic growth, we will put a 4-key indicator of how we are going to present the economic growth itself, which is the 4 key indicators, which is number 1 is per capita income, second is poverty, third social and health, and fourth is operational pattern. For this debate, we would like to explain in terms of per capita income and the poverty. So regarding the per capita income, I would like to prove that the economic growth is really the best solution for the climate change, really, because let's imagine, let's compare. What is the major difference between how one country tackles the climate change for a high GDP country and a low GDP country? Let's not take it really for example. We compare it between two nations, which is China and Malaysia.
Yeah.
Okay, can you please explain what does the relation of per capita income with finding the solution of climate change?
Oh, of course. My second speaker is going to explain your question later. So now I will move on to my explanation. The economic growth is really the solution to the climate change because to compare it in two nations. First, let us compare the nation which is the GDP increase since 1950, which is China. China's GDP rate increases from 1950 to 2010, and for the latest one is in 2018, $30.6 trillion. And yes, we all know that China have the highest air pollution. But have you ever think why does people, even though China have the highest air pollution, but why people still move into the Beijing specifically? Because they really have, since they have the high GDP, since they have high GDP, they have a strong economic base to use it for research and development. For example, in China, there is air pollution, but they have undertaken the coal power station because okay, I will explain the fact. From 2000 to 2005, the air pollution doubled, but they use the money that they got from they use the money to reduce the coal power station so that the when one nation have a high economic growth, they can use the money really to use it to invest in research and development. When they use the technology in research and development, we can enhance the technology and we bring down the coal power station that really emitted a large amount of carbon dioxide, and we replace it to a greener alternative. For example, in Xinjiang province, they built a high air purification tower, and with that said, I believe that this house, the economic growth is the best solution to climate change.
Thank you. Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 11 seconds. I will now call upon the leader of opposition to deliver her speech. Here.
Firstly, we on the opposition side will not believe that economic growth is the solution to climate change, because as the Prime Minister failed to set up the case well, let us on the opposition side do the job for them. First, the Prime Minister has mentioned about the definition of climate change, which is the increasing rise of temperature. But the real definition of climate change is change in the weather pattern. For example, in the issue of global warming, such as greenhouse effect, and change in the weather pattern means that places are hotter, getting hotter, and also places are colder, getting colder, or vice versa. It's not only about the temperature rise, it's also about the falling of temperature. And I will concede for the opposition side, we will obviously not agree and not believe that economic growth is the solution to climate change, because I will start with status quo. In China, you mentioned about GDP, right? GDP increased massively in China over the year, coincidentally affected the climate change over the year also in China. And imagine the worst case scenario that can happen. Country demand for higher revenue, higher GDP, higher development for the sake of reaching economic excellence, but the cause, it will lead to the destruction of environment, which include the climate change. And the government side, they're just talking about the economic growth, but not about how economic growth is the solution to the climate change. And no one enough from the government. They don't justify their belief regarding emotion. And with that, I would like to mention about the problem statement that we on the opposition side believe exists in emotion. Countries nowadays are craving for higher economic rate, but neglecting the fact that it will give bad consequences to climate change or environmental. And that is why the stance for our side, opposition side, we believe that economic growth is not a solution but a cause to climate change. And the objective is we wish to achieve a better solution to resolve climate change other than economic growth. And for example, other ways are mentioned by the first speaker from the government side, which is R&D. But she doesn't tell how R&D can actually change, be a solution to climate change. And now we would say about R&D actually can do a research to actually produce a more environmental friendly products, or even a cleaner, safer way to produce more energy. And with that, I would like to move to my first argument, which is the rise of economics. With the rise of economics, there will also be rise in demand. With the rise of the economics, there are for sure the rise of demand, and the rise of product will increase too, because people are demanding for more products and goods, and also in services. That is why the rate of the product that will be produced will be increased, and this cycle will be repeated and never finish. And the reason why we believe that this doesn't lead to solution, this is why the reason why we don't believe that this doesn't lead to solution to climate change. This is because when the manufacturing rate increase, the manufacturer will definitely use more resources to produce goods, to produce more products, because what are they going to use to produce products? And because it will definitely use more resources, cause more pollution, and basically worsen the climate change. And for example, climate change in China they are facing falls of temperature from the 2000 to 2010, with the rate of 1.5 Celsius to 3.8 Celsius per year. And back to our definition, which is the climate change. This means and shows the climate change because climate change also relates to the place colder, getting colder. And this is why we believe the linkage to the motion is economic growth is not a solution to climate change, because we can see this is happening right now in China. But still, China is one of the primary the biggest contributor to manufacturing and also in producing more products, but they are not stopping. I mean, they just thinking about economic growth, but they know that the temperature is falling in China, but they didn't do anything, and they are still now focusing on economic growth. And why we should win this debate is because we on the opposition side believe that economic growth is absolutely not the solution to climate change. And there are many ways, and I've explained just now, which is one of them is R&D. And why we should win is because economic growth is actually worsen the climate change and not the solution to climate change. By that, we wholeheartedly, the opposition side, will not believe that economic growth is the solution to climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Speakers spoke for 6 minutes and 24 seconds. I will now call upon the Deputy Prime Minister to deliver her speech. Hear, hear.
We believe that economic growth is the solution to climate change, and as the Deputy Prime Minister is what I always do the best to support the Prime Minister well. So firstly, what I'm going to do is going to explain how will per capita income and poverty will actually be the solution to climate change. So firstly, per capita income. Per capita income, it has been explained by, I'm not going to repeat, but GDP and such. So how will that actually be the solution to climate change? So firstly, if the country has high per capita income, so the revenue that they get, they will use it in research and development. To what? Research and development in the environmental sector. In that, they will give the environmental sector a chance to build up a new technology, to actually reduce or curb CO2 in the atmosphere. This has actually been proved in countries in China and Japan. They know it is actually a fact that countries like Japan and China has actually high air pollution, and their climate change is actually very severe because due to their mass production and whatsoever. So that's why actually the thing about having large pollution is what opens the eye of most countries. So when they open the eye, they realize that it's actually a problem. So that is why they actually build technology to actually reduce the CO2. So like an example, there are actually machines that actually filter CO2 from released to the atmosphere. And also, there's actually a machine that can absorb CO2 from the atmosphere that is being built by Switzerland. So that machine is very expensive. So why I say that economic growth is very important as a solution to climate change, because that machine that I said that that carbon dioxide sucking machine is actually very expensive. How will we get the money? The money can be get from per capita income, the increase in per capita income of a country, and that is how that money can be used to buy the machine, and also it can actually reduce the climate change. Okay, and secondly, in poverty, how can actually poverty be the solution to climate change? If the amount of poverty in a country increases, the government has no choice but to focusing on the poverty in the country instead of the problems and pollutions or maybe climate changes that happen in their country, because they focus the well-being of their people first and before focusing on any other problem. So that's why I say that if we has lower amount of poverty, and that can increase the revenue of the country, and that is how and that's actually how with that money we can use it for, like I said just now, for research and development, to actually make technologies, to curb or reduce climate change. Okay, as for climate change, the thing about climate change is most countries in the world, and this is very alarming, the why we say that climate change is rising temperature, because it is actually a fact that most countries in the world, even Antarctica, has alarming rate of temperature increase, not decrease. Because as an example, that the thing about climate change is the most dangerous part of climate change is the increased temperature. That it will first it will cause like very hot to the extent that plants cannot grow, and also the iceberg melts and whatsoever. Okay, whatever that. The thing about that is, the thing about climate change is if we don't curb it, it will become worse for the future generation, and that's why economic growth is a very important part of this. How can you actually curb any problem if you don't have money? Because nowadays money matters. That's actually a fact. Because if a country has no money, they can't do any development on rising technology and whatsoever. Okay, for enough, quick.
Okay, regarding the fact that about the CO2 emission that suck all the carbon dioxide to curb the climate change. So the worst case scenario is that does the CO2 emission actually reduce the climate change in the world? And does if the emission does work, what if the emission actually interfere with the process of the ecosystem of photosynthesis itself?
The thing is, it is the fact that there are too many CO2 in the atmosphere right now. It's not, if we suck that CO2, it will not change, it will not interfere with the ecosystem, because that's actually a fact from the geology, whatever. I'm so sorry about that. That's the amount of CO2 is too many in the world, that is what causes climate change. We need to focus. The main cause of climate change is too much carbon dioxide in the world, in the atmosphere. As to why we, for the government, believe that the solution to climate change is economic growth, because we need the money. So we actually need the money to curb or to reduce all this carbon dioxide that is there in the atmosphere. Okay, so for my stance is, we actually believe that economic growth is rooting for the environment, because we need all the money we need. We need all the money that we have to actually root for the environment. Okay, and so we come back to my first argument. My first argument, which I have explained some of them just now, is rise of technology. The thing of rise of technology is, first, we need nowadays that we believe that the traditional way of fixing the economy, like using the forest and hoping on the forest, is not really applicable, because we know that most forests are actually deforestation happens because we need places to build houses and to make factories and such. So I believe that to actually curb this problem, what we do is, firstly, we need to have money, of course, and secondly, with that money, we actually do research and development. To what, like I said just now, is to have the technology to actually curb all problem. Like I said, making like filters of CO2, or maybe make a machine that sucks CO2 and such. And as for that, we believe that when that happens, that can actually reduce climate change. And if it's not reduced, it will actually curb the climate change, and would not make it worse. And so I, for the government, will continue to propose. Thank you.
Thank you. Speakers spoke for 7 minutes and 90 seconds. I will now call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition to deliver her speech. Here.
Good evening to the Mr. Speaker and to the educators in today's debate. So firstly, I, as the second speaker from the opposition team, firstly will be rebutting the points given by the government side, and for sure I will be moving on to my argument. So firstly, the Deputy Prime Minister has mentioned about how are you going to settle this climate change if you don't have money, if you don't have economic growth, and so on. But we do know that every country, every year, they already have a specific amount of income allocation for the country's R&D, for the research and development, so the countries don't have to reach the peak of their economic growth to provide solution for the climate change. Because we do know that every country already take part in this by providing a certain amount for this problem. Sit down. And the Deputy Prime Minister has also mentioned about how the increasing of capita income, like for example, Switzerland, they have built a machine that is very expensive to cure climate change and so on. But how many can you assure all the countries in this world will want to use all their money focusing on the climate change? Yes, please.
So when you say that every country provides a certain amount of money, in that case, why China has a high pollution rate?
Because you already mentioned about they have the highest GDP, so that's just the common sense. So moving on to my first argument, which is the economy. We believe that economic growth is not the solution, but is the cause. Like as my side stance is, because we do know that, like the Deputy Prime Minister has also mentioned, like very repetitively about they're focusing on how climate change is on high temperature, increasing temperature in this world, and so on. And the Deputy Prime Minister is like basically on our side because they keep on giving points for how economic, about how it affects the climate change, not supporting their own side by saying the economic growth is the solution to the climate change. So, therefore, we do know that by having economic growth, it will lead to higher amount of manufacturing factories and so on. So therefore, it will lead to the higher temperature of this world. Like for example, recently the research by NASA has found about that a city size of iceberg has growth of Antarctica because of the increasing rapidly of the climate change. So that's why we therefore believe that. Economic growth is not the solution to the climate change, because as the world evolves, as the world by nowadays, the economic growth of most countries is increasing, but it leads to more destruction of the climate change rather than providing solution. And moving on to my second, and like for example too, when the temperature is so high, it will also affect certain countries. Like if the countries the weather is too dry, the weather is too high, it will lead to dryness, right? And they will have drought. The crops cannot grow, like you haven't mentioned it. So, and if you're saying about climate change problem, like we do see that Egypt is very hot in the day, but they're very cold in the night. So these are basically what's the example of the climate change. So, but moving on to my second argument, which is some government might be using their revenue for the sake of their increase of economy. So we do know that all countries, all government would want to achieve economic excellence for the country, for the sake of their people, for the sake of their own country's well-being and so on. So how can you assure that every country will want to sacrifice their most revenues from their profit making or from their economic itself to provide solution for the climate change? Like for example, if in North Korea, if they have have a very high economic growth in their country, would they want to provide solution for the climate change? Would they want to spend their money on creating machines and so on? Of course, they would rather focusing on their militaries, on their building programs, and such on, because every country would want to prioritize their country first, rather than taking this climate change as an issue for them to take care for. So therefore, we believe that we should oppose this. This house believes that economic growth is the solution to the climate change, because it is rather illogical, because we have provided you with the reason why economic growth is the reason, not the solution to climate change.
Thank you. Speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 32 seconds. I will now call upon the government whip to deliver his speech. Here.
For the motion today, this House believes that economic growth is the solution to climate changes. We as the government side clearly agree with this motion. Before I move on with our points, let us go to rebuttal. First of all, I want to rebut the leader of the opposition side, and that is, first of all, they say that a lot of the rise of economic growth means the rise of demand. So rate of production will increase. There's no doubt about that. But in this case, the opposition side is clearly delusional and think that when the mass production of a certain things or certain item increase, they will use these natural resources of their own country non-stop until they end, until they run out. So this is what I said that. This is why I say that the opposition are really delusional with this type of thing. In every person guide of mind, they will never use that certain natural resources. Even a country will never use that certain resources into it will run out. They will preserve resources for their own country, for their own good. So when we say that the rise of economy means will provide the solution for climate changes, we believe that the economic growth by the mass production of a certain thing will actually increase the money of a certain company to buy something that like a filter for their own factory or a more greener environment for their own office and all that. So let us move on. Let us move on to the second rebuttal, the rebuttal of the second legitimity of the opposition leader. So I'm not clearly agree with that rebuttal when they say that when they answer my rebuttal that they say that China has a high GDP but and that actually contributed to their climate changes. I mean, we only give two examples, and that's Malaysia and China. Let's look more wider. Let us look at Japan. They have a high GDP. That is just an example. So let us look at wider, like around the world. Let us look at Japan. They have let us look at Tokyo, for example. They have a high GDP. There's not even there's a little tree there, but they have a very low pollution there. So because of the high GDP or economic growth, is actually contribute or help them to actually reduce the pollution in their own city. So why not we do it on the other basis? That we give example, use advanced technology like that we use in Switzerland to suck the CO2 and all that to change the climate changes to a better. Yes.
Okay, we are talking about economic growth to find whether or not economic growth is solution to climate change. We are not actually talking whether or not economic growth will lead to the solution of pollution.
Is it bullshit?
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. That is just an example of a certain country will actually show that even they have a high GDP, they will also contribute to the environmental that is also contribute to the climate changes. So let us move on to our points, and that is we believe that the economic growth of a certain country, economic growth on a certain country will actually bring solution to the climate changes, as we believe that a certain country will use this to research and development for their own good, for their own country. Like the opposition say, every country have been providing a certain amount of money to this research and development, but nothing has changed. Climate change is still ongoing. So that is why we need more and more money on research and development to increase the technology to help the ecosystem. Even the ecosystem right now can help us to increase the climate change. So we as a human being, human that live in this earth, we must be aware and help this ecosystem to change the climate changes to a better of human being. So yes.
Okay. If nothing has changed, even if there is R&D with the amount of money that has been allocated until now, what does having more money make you believe that we will absolutely find the solution to climate change?
Having more money that used in the research and development will be contribute to more advanced technology. I mean, look at what we have now. We have a machine that sucks CO2 and make it into oxygen. That is something like a very advanced. So what happens if we have a more advanced technology than that? Imagine the possibility. So let us move on with our points, and that is we believe that the economic growth will contribute to the research and development of a certain country, and we believe that this country will use this advanced technology for the well-being of the earth, and will also to that I propose.
Speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 32 seconds. I will now call upon the opposition whip to deliver his speech. Here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As what has been said by the whipper of the government, he said that we on the opposition side are being delusional. But it seems that the people on the table of government doesn't really understand what today's motion want, what they should defend on today's debate. So before moving on, a very good evening I bid to you, Mr. Speaker and timekeeper, wise panel of adjudicators, line of opponent on the side of government, my teammates on the side of opposition. So, the case that I will present to you today consists of 3 parts, which is basically my whipping session. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to rebut all nonsensical and shaky argument that was brought up by the government side. The second thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to polish up the argument that has been presented by my teammates. The last thing that I'm going to do is provide to you a comparative analysis as to why we on the opposition side should win today's debate and why the government should fall. So, moving on to the first thing that I'm going to do today is the rebuttal. So, rebutting as a whole from the case that was brought by the Prime Minister, they clearly didn't understand that today's motion, which is this House believe that economic growth is the solution to climate change, this is a debate about belief, a debate about ideology as to why they believe that economic growth is the solution to climate change. But the case that has been set up by the Prime Minister is completely shaky. She only set up a case that revolves around economic growth. She doesn't actually say to us, she doesn't actually state us a burden of proof why they clearly believe that this economic growth will surely ensure to us finding the solution of climate changes. So, for personal rebuttal of the government side, I will start with the government whip. Okay, the government whip said that, of course we are being delusional, but he said that we are delusional by thinking that manufacturer will definitely use the resources till it's run out. So we said that the fact that with the increase of, with the rise of economic growth, there will also be rise in manufacturing and production. By that, the consequences are there will be more usage of natural resources, hence there will be more pollution involved. This is what will cause climate changes, not what will be the solution for climate changes, Mr. Speaker. The second is that he's provide us with an example that hasn't ever been provided by both of his first speaker, which is that, okay, regarding Japan, Japan has low pollution because of high GDP. Okay, so climate change is a global issue. What does that mean when one country that has high GDP has lower pollution rate has to do with all other countries? We are looking at a wide scope right now. So what do we want right now is we want you to prove to us whether or not the fact that you believe so that the economic growth is the solution to climate change is valid in this context. So, moving on to the Deputy of Prime Minister. Her argument is basically why per capita income and poverty will lead to finding the solution of climate changes. Okay, I really don't understand what the government side truly means by increasing the per capita income or by lowering the rate of poverty will lead to us finding the solution of climate change. That's just us resolving the issue of that country by itself, not us resolving the issue of climate change that has been a global issue for so long. The next thing is her example regarding the CO2 machine is blatantly ridiculous because, okay, she said that the fact that CO2 are excessive in this world right now and that lead to climate changes. So when we have that CO2 machine, we can regulate the amount of CO2. So how many of that machines do we really need in order to regulate the amount of CO2 so that this world will not have anything to do with climate change? Let's say. So the next thing is for the Prime Minister. So the case that she brought up, okay, she said to us that when I asked her a point of interruption, she said that it will be answered by the second speaker, but it seems that the second speaker hasn't even answered it properly for me because their argument basically just revolve around economic growth. They didn't actually prove it to us. How does I'm sorry for if my voice cracked. How does economic growth actually lead to us finding the solution of climate change, while we on the opposition side actually show it to you that our argument for today is why we believe that economic growth will not lead us to finding any solution for climate changes. So, moving on to my second agenda for today is I'm going to polish the argument that was given by my speakers. So, we clearly give it to you three solid arguments with a solid case set up that was presented by my leader of opposition. We tell you that the reason why we don't believe that economic growth is the solution to climate change is, first, with the rise of economy, there will be also the rise in demand. With the rise in demand, there will also for sure the rise with the rise of economics, there will also for sure be the rise of demand. I have explained that clearly in my rebuttal before this. So the second point that was brought up by us is that economic growth is not the solution, but mostly it's just the reason for climate change. That also has been resolved in my rebuttal just now. And the last thing regarding the last argument that has been presented by my speakers is that some government might just use their revenue for the betterment of their country, not for finding the solution of climate changes. So, for the comparative analysis part of my speech is, we believe that the argument that has been presented by us actually catered for today's motion as to present to you as to why we believe that economic growth is the solution, why economic growth is not the solution, the absolute solution for climate changes. But the government side hasn't actually proved it to us, proved it to you, member of the house, as to why do I actually believe that economic growth is the solution for climate change. Because I don't know what are they actually thinking, because everything just revolve around economic growth and not about finding solution for the climate change. So with that, and I'm proud to oppose. I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you. Speakers spoke for 7 minutes and 9 seconds. Each team will be given 1 minute to prepare their reply speech. 1 minute starts now.
Very. We were excited. Wow. Dia duit ke this kan? Dia duit ke this kan? Tak fikir macam ni. Okay, kita bincang.
Time's up. The time given to deliver the reply speech is 3 minutes. The bell will ring twice, indicating that 3 minutes is up. I will now call upon the leader of opposition to deliver her reply speech. Here.
Mr. Speaker, firstly I would like to start to mention that the government side is being idealistic and we should be realistic instead. And I think the argument that has been given by the government side is totally a plain nonsense compared to us. We've given a solid argument compared to the government side, which the first argument that we've been mentioned is about rise of economy, rise in demand, rise of production, and rise of pollution, which one of them will affect climate change, and we cannot deny that, and even the government side cannot deny that, because the third speaker from the government side did mention that it's true that rise of economics, will be rise in demand, but he still denied the fact that it will also lead to the rise of pollution and climate change, and this shows that they are not believing in this. And from the first speaker of the government side until the last speaker of the government side, they don't justify their belief regarding the motion. From the first, we were waiting but we didn't get any answer, and they are just talking about economic growth again and again, but not about why and on what belief that they think economic growth is a solution to climate change. And about being realistic, we are not only talking about economic growth, but we are actually talking about how the economic growth is not a solution but actually a cause to climate change. And that is related to my first argument, which is more resources happen and more pollution will happen because they will use lots of resources. And the next argument is economic growth is not the solution but actually the reason to climate change, because you were saying about the R&D, and that is actually the other ways, but when the government side have to actually prove us that economic growth is a solution, but you are actually giving us the other solution instead of proving. And we have proved everything about why the economic growth is the solution. It's not the solution to climate change, and about the revenue that some government might not using their revenue for the betterment of their country. Is like you just cannot force all of the country to use all of their income to actually give money to like buying a new machine of CO2, because like what you mentioned, what the first government speaker mentioned about why we should win the economic, why we should win this motion, because we have proved you a solid case setup and also a solid argument, and we have shown that economic growth is not the solution to climate change, and the government side also failed to prove that economic growth is the solution to climate change, while us, we have support our belief that we're not believing in this with our argument, and by that we on the opposition side would wholeheartedly not believe the economic growth is solution to climate change.
Thank you. I will now call upon the Deputy Prime Minister to deliver her speech. Hear him.
So basically what we for the government side actually focused a lot of times is actually the part where economic growth actually give the solution for climate change in terms of technology, and which I believe that from the opposition side didn't really believe that technology is what we from the government believe is the solution for the climate change, as what I have explained during my speech. So firstly, what I believe that the economic growth is actually a solution for climate change, because I gave examples and explanation on how actually research and development for technology uses a lot of money, because nowadays, like I said, money matters like a lot, and also that actually the fact is where whether we like it or not, a country will actually have economic growth, and what we instead of the opposite say that economic growth is saying that is a cause for climate change, we believe that economic growth is the solution for climate change, because even if it's actually it actually helps to grow for the growth of economy, and at the same time actually helps to curb and reduce climate change. That's what we from the side government believe. And like I said, from my argument, which is the thing about the rest of technology, like I said about like examples on the machines whatsoever. And the thing is, why the opposition side has only like being very scared. They only like believe that economic growth is the cause for climate change, and they didn't even realize that whether we like it or not, like I said just now, the thing about economic growth will happen anywhere in the world, because we don't want to stay at like the 90s forever, right? Because we want to go forward to the 21st century. And as to that, like we said, also like how actually the what kind of economic growth that is actually helping to get more revenues, like I said, on the increase in per capita income, and also the reduce of poverty and such, and also how actually the money can be used to actually be the solution for climate change, for which we believe that the opposition only, it's not delusional, it's only like being scared, to be exact, because we are giving a way to move forward and give solution that comes with moving forward. And as for that, I raise my case and continue to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That will now conclude our debates for this round. Thank you for the government team and the opposition team. Speakers may leave the room now.
Habis.